The Last of Us 2 is a compelling, thrilling, and at times heartwarming game that captures our hearts and has us on the edge of our seats from beginning until end. The roughly 20 to 25 hours of gameplay are told from the perspective of two playable characters, Ellie and Abby. Based heavily on the idea of revenge, the story shows two sides of the same story, both with completely contrasting ideals and experiences. While the story does its best to captivate us and keep us on edge, the lack of direction, confusing character arcs, and at times hard to follow plotlines hurt The Last of Us 2 in the long run. What's up guys, it's Hero here, and today I'm going to be giving you my Last of Us 2 review. I've done all I can to avoid looking at other reviews and staying away from the big name websites that review big title games even before they've released, but from friends and other sources I've heard very positive and very negative reviews of this game. Since I've played this whole game myself, I will do my best to give my 100% honest opinion and praise and critique the game when it deserves it or not. This video is all about how I see the game, so if you disagree with me, make sure to leave it in the comments. I'm going to be breaking down this review in 4 different parts, so make sure to stick to the end. Alright, let's see what The Last of Us 2 is really like.
What do you think of this view, huh? It's pretty nice.
Not much needs to be said for this section, considering Naughty Dog hit it out of the park on this one. The vastness of the world makes for some great shots, notably at the beginning when Tommy and Joel are riding towards Jackson, the snowy landscape when Ellie and Dina are on patrol, or near the end when Ellie and JJ are on the farm. These 3 scenes were personally my favorite to look at, but I was also amazed by how detailed Seattle was. Naughty Dog put a tremendous amount of detail into building this rundown city where the majority of the game takes place, and it surely paid off. From the grassy abandoned streets to the high-rise buildings and all the way to the marina and the ocean front, Naughty Dog outdid themselves on this one. Every location is breathtaking, and I have to give them a 10 out of 10 for this section. Graphics-wise, this game looks spectacular. The amount of detail on every character is astounding. Everything from hair to freckles looks great, and even when Ellie is covered in blood, it still looks realistic. Great job on this part, Naughty Dog. I am thoroughly impressed.
Ugh, that smell. I hate shamblers.
The gameplay in The Last of Us 2 is a huge step up from the first installment. The famous listen mode from the first game makes a return, and using it is definitely beneficial when trying to deal with all kinds of enemies, from the WLF to infected, and even when trying to hide from the dogs. Oh god, don't get me started on the dogs. The shooting mechanics are more refined this time around, however there were times when my aim was literally on an enemy and I shot and the bullet would miss, which did get frustrating at times. Where The Last of Us 2's combat really impresses me is in the hand-to-hand combat. Punching an enemy in the face feels very satisfying, and stabbing an infected feels even better. The dodge mechanics are easy to grasp, and if you time it just right, you'll be able to take down your enemies very easily. Stealth also plays a large role in this game. There are moments when you have to get around a dozen of enemies, and going on a rampage simply isn't viable. By using bricks or bottles to distract your enemies, being stealthy is sometimes your best and only option. The usage of large grass and foliage to get the upper hand on enemies is one of my favorite aspects to using the game's environment to your advantage, and I'm glad Naughty Dog added this in. Taking down infected is relatively easy, however the new Shambler enemies in this game definitely annoyed me more than once. Although I died many times in my playthrough, mostly because I suck at video games, the gameplay and combat in this game is smooth, precise, and very well executed. A huge jump from the first game's mechanics. I gotta give this section a 10 out of 10 as well.
You're infuriating. Have you met you?
The Last of Us 2 has many different characters. You get to meet many of them and learn their stories, so since there's so many, I'm going to focus on the important ones. I'll leave Ellie and Abby for last and start with the fan favorite, Joel.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
Although Joel's role in this game is minimal, because he dies so quickly, you learn a lot about him and the things that have happened to him since saving Ellie at the end of the first game. Joel's decision to save Ellie seemed like the right thing to do in the moment, but he faces the consequences of his actions later on. As the story goes on, flashbacks of Ellie's memories show how she finds out about Joel's actions and how she instantly condemns them. Ellie and Joel's relationship is shattered in Salt Lake City when Ellie finds out the truth. For the few hours you play as Joel, you can tell he is regretful, not necessarily because of his actions, but because he has lost Ellie's trust in a relationship he worked so hard for. We sympathize for Joel because in his heart he was doing the right thing, but now he must live with the fact that Ellie does not see his actions in the same light he does. What I like most about Joel is when he teaches Ellie how to play the guitar. No matter what happens between them, Joel loves Ellie and would do anything for her. Although Joel deserved a better sending off, and we can all agree he made his fair share of mistakes throughout this game, his dedication to Ellie and his attempts of reconciliation show that even after all he's been through, he's just an old man trying to do right. Joel, we miss you, and no matter what, you'll always have a sweet spot in our hearts. 10 out of 10.
Ha! You find your own damn bribes.
Tommy's back in this game, but we only see him at the start and the end of the game. I felt attached to him at the beginning, but because you don't see him much after that, to me he was a bit of an afterthought. Having to watch his brother die in a gruesome death in front of him must not have been easy, but running off to Seattle all by himself made me dislike him quite a bit. Like, I get why he did it, but in my opinion it was too rash and too spur of the moment sort of thing. In my opinion, Tommy shined the brightest in the scene with Ellie, where he teaches her how to snipe from far out. The two of them bond, and you can tell Tommy cares for her. I respect him in the scene for trying to convince Ellie to be more open to Joel. Although Ellie doesn't know the truth here, Tommy can tell there's a rift between the two, and being the quote-unquote cool uncle, I could say, he does his duty. Tommy does clutch up in the theater by saving Ellie's life, and we respect him for a moment, until he shows up at the farm. In this scene, he's basically forcing Ellie to go after Abby, even though it's been roughly a year or more since the events of Seattle. Ellie is clearly settled down with Dina, and the Abby fight is over. If Tommy was so hellbent on revenge, he should have gone after Abby, disabled leg and all. Dragging Ellie back into his world of revenge was kind of a dick move, and that's when I stopped liking him. Overall, Tommy's a good character, but some of the decisions he made me dislike him. I'll give him a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Ellie. I think they should be terrified of you.
Personally, I really like Dina. She's fun, cool, doesn't really give a damn, and clearly cares about Ellie. The two of them have an interesting talk as they journey through Seattle, and I like the synagogue part as we got to learn more about Dina's background. In this scene, Naughty Dog is making an effort to make us like this character, and for me, it worked. Once she gets pregnant, she can't really do much, and we don't see her for a while. When we do see her again, she's trying to save Ellie's life, which shows the extent to which she will go to for her loved one. Once on the farm, Dina settles into the family life and does her best to forget about the old life. When Ellie has a panic attack, Dina is there to calm her down and tell her everything is okay. She's also there to defend Ellie when Tommy comes in and disrupts the peace, showing that Dina is still a badass. Dina is a pretty cool character, and although she can't fit Joel's shoes as Ellie's ideal traveling companion, the writers do a good job giving her a fun personality and showing that she truly does care for Ellie. I wish we would have seen more of her though, and because of that, I'll give Dina a 9 out of 10.
Alright, how about, my friends can't get out of their own damn way?
Jesse is a good side character. I enjoyed meeting him at the start when you first walk around Jackson. Him and Ellie have a good friendship going, and it's kind of funny to see how he fits into the Dina, Ellie, Jesse love triangle. I never really got too attached to Jesse, but when he comes to Seattle and saves Ellie, especially during the epic car scene chase, I begin to appreciate him as more of a character. He saved Ellie from a sticky situation, so you gotta give him respect for that. However, when Abby killed him, I was like, ooh, that sucks, but it didn't really hit me or anything. Jesse is a cool side character who has a good sense of humor, but is also a good friend who comes in clutch when needed. I'll give him an 8 out of 10.
Lev! Get back here! Lev!
Lev and Yara come in at a crucial moment right when you think Abby's fate has been determined. The sibling combo is pretty lethal, mowing down scars as they go. They're also pretty ballsy for leaving the call and trying to run away, considering how unforgiving the Seraphites can be. Although Yara is kind of useless because of her broken arm, when she sacrifices herself for Abby, it shows that even though the two are very different, they forged a bond in a very short time, showing that Yara was empathetic. When Yara dies, Lev becomes the focal point as Abby's new sidekick. Although Lev is pretty cool and crazy good with a bow, I really did not agree with him going back to the island to save his mom. It was like walking to a death trap. He knew the consequences and still said, screw it, I'm going. And then he killed his mom? Like, what? Lev, you crazy bastard. After the whole island scene, Lev doesn't do much, but the short scene in Santa Barbara when they're exploring the empty house shows that Abby and Lev are now the dream team. I'll give Yara a 7 out of 10, Lev an 8 out of 10, and the duo together a 9 out of 10 for the badassery they put on display.
I don't want to fight over land that I don't give a fuck about anymore.
The WLF were clearly meant to be the antagonists of this story, and they do a good job living up to this role. But why do they have to be so annoying? Let's start with Owen. This guy cannot make up his damn mind about what he wants. One second he's in love with Abby and looks like a hopeless romantic, then they break up and he goes to Mel. Okay, that's understandable. But then he can't make up his mind even though he got Mel pregnant? Like, what? I really don't understand this guy, and then to make him even more of a douche, he screws Abby on the boat while he's drunk after attempting to fight her. This dude is on something, I swear. I liked him at first, but as time goes on, his inability to make up his damn mind makes him irritating. He's not a bad character to the story, but personally I don't like him, so I'll give him a generous 5 out of 10. Mel is alright in my book. She does have her moments, but her ongoing conflict with Abby over Owen is the only exciting part about her. She just seems like a boring nurse who's quiet and does what she's told. The only time I was captivated by this character was the aquarium scene where she made Abby cry. I was like, damn, okay Mel, you're kind of a badass. There's nothing wrong with Mel, she's just kind of a bland character in my book, so I'll give her a 6 out of 10. There are a few other members of the WLF I could talk about, but the only other character I actually liked from this group was Manny. Manny was a funny guy who didn't really care. His womanizing shows that he's a player, and even in a post-apocalyptic world where Tinder doesn't exist, my guy is still making moves. Manny is the saving grace of the WLF when it comes to interesting characters. The only part I didn't like about him was when he spat on Joel. Like, man, come on, really? Apart from that, I love this guy, so I'll give him a 9 out of 10.
We let you both live, and you wasted it.
Alright, here's the big one, both literally and figuratively. I mean, look at the size of it. Okay, I had to make that joke. Come on, she's huge. Abby is a polarizing character because you want to hate her, but after a while, you can't anymore. When she is beating Joel to a pulp, there's nothing more you want to do but jump into the TV and chokehold her as hard as you can. But you can't, and all you can do is watch this behemoth kills one of the best video game characters of all time. I felt no remorse for Abby while playing as her in the flashback scene where she's stationed in Utah, but when I realized that Joel killed her dad and in essence Abby was doing what Ellie was currently trying to do, which was getting revenge, I was like, okay, that makes sense, I guess. But I still wasn't attached to her as a character. Even in the recording a scene with Owen, I was like, okay, cool, you have a boyfriend, whoop-de-dang-do. And in the scene where she's about to die and Lev and Yara save her, I was thinking to myself, finally, let's move on from her. I'm not saying this because Abby's a bad character, but rather because it's hard to sympathize with her, although her actions can be considered justified after what she did to Joel. I think it took me until the part where she gets the medical supplies from the hospital for Yara and saves her arm for me to actually begin to like her. This act of defiance goes against everything she believes in, going against the wolves to save a Scar. But it's this act of good faith that puts Abby in my good books. For a while, I forgot about what happened at the start and focused solely on Abby and where she's going. If we're talking strictly about Abby's personality, her tough, rock-hard shell of a personality is a polar opposite to Ellie's, which makes her so unique and different. Although the quote-unquote tough guy act gets boring after a while, her moments of humanity, like caring for Yara and crying when confronted by Mel, shows that Abby is just a girl who's been through a lot and had to be tough to overcome her problems. In the end, Abby is a great character, and Naughty Dog really tried their best to make her likable. However, her actions and hard-to-crack shell makes it hard for the player to connect with her. After a few hours and a few flashbacks, you realize Abby is pretty cool, and you eventually give in as she grows on you. I'll give Abby a solid 9.5 out of 10.
Look at me! I'm on a motherfucking dinosaur!
Ellie becomes the cornerstone of the franchise after Joel's death, meaning she has big shoes to fill. Personally, I say she fills them well, but not perfectly. Ellie's whole character development in this game revolves around her being hell-bent on revenge, which we'll discuss in a bit. At the start of the game, you can tell there's a distance between Ellie and Joel, but the two are still trying their best to be friendly with one another. I like the part where her and Jesse are walking through Jackson as they seem like two normal teenagers. As Ellie and Dina roam through Seattle, you learn more about their relationship and buy into the idea of them being a great couple. Ellie is clearly the more quiet, reserved one in the relationship, which makes sense considering what happened with Joel. When Ellie finds out Dina is pregnant, although confused and a bit upset at first, she's understanding and shows that she's there for her, showing that even after all she's been through, she still has a big-hearted love. Where Ellie shined the most is through the flashback scenes with Joel. As we play through the scenes, we can tell that Ellie is slowly learning the truth about what happened in Salt Lake City, and she feels guilty about it. When she confronts Joel and finally learns the truth, she breaks down as a sense of survivor's guilt takes over her. Ellie wanted to make a difference in this world, and since Joel didn't let that happen, she cannot look at him the same anymore. For the next 2 or so years, the dynamic between Ellie and Joel deteriorates, which sets up Ellie perfectly. As she watches Joel die, she puts everything behind her, all the pain, all the bad memories, and is begging for Abby to let Joel live because deep down, Ellie isn't who she is without Joel. She knows that Joel is the only person on this ravaged planet that loves her. And in my opinion, I feel as the game goes on, Ellie has a sense of guilt for pushing Joel away. What this scene does well is establish her need for revenge. Ellie stops at nothing to avenge Joel's death, because deep down, she knows Joel would have done the same for her. Ellie has to endure so much throughout this game, but what I like most about her is that no matter what happens, she keeps going and doesn't give up. She experiences every possible human emotion throughout the course of this game, and because of that, I have to give Ellie a 10 out of 10 on this one. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for.
Don't look like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
Now, a lot can be said about the story. You can make the argument that it's great, you can make the argument that it sucks, and you can definitely say a few things about the ending. This game has such a complex narrative and such an intricate plot that if I were to explain the whole thing in order, this video would be about 30 minutes longer. Instead, in this segment of the video, I'll talk about the things I did like about the game's story, what I didn't like, and my take on the ending. So before you bash me in the comments, just hear me out.
My very educated mother just served us nice pizzas.
Did you just have a stroke?
Literally any part of this game where we got to play the guitar. This was such a cool little thing for Naughty Dog to add in, and in my opinion, I connected with the character who was playing more in these moments. I also really liked how explorative the game was. Although a lot of Naughty Dog's games are linear, you could explore so much in this game, and I personally liked that. I really liked the Nathan Drake reference in the bank vault, and when the WLF car was playing on the PS Vita, those were 2 nice little PlayStation-themed Easter eggs. I really liked the collectibles you could find, and some of the notes gave some insight on the lives of other survivors and sometimes the approaching death that would come. I really liked the museum scene where Ellie and Joel are celebrating Ellie's birthday. The rocket scene is definitely my favorite part of this game, and as Ellie gets to experience a dream of hers in a rare moment of peace and tranquility. I really enjoyed the car chase scene with Ellie and Jesse as it gave me some Uncharted vibes. Overall, playing as Ellie was really fun, and the story does a good job developing and keeping us roped in as we play. When we played as Abby, I liked the stadium part where we got to see how the WLF lives. Also, living in a freaking football stadium would be pretty sick, you know, if these things weren't out here trying to murder us at every goddamn instance. I really liked the scene where Abby and Lev are walking across the terrified bridges, as Abby is trying her best to overcome her one fear, making her seem more human instead of a Hulk-sized killer. My favorite scene playing as Abby has got to be when her and Lev are riding through Haven as it's burning down. I miss the chaos and the fighting, It's a mix of beautiful scenery and an immense amount of details. The farm scene with Ellie, Dina, and JJ is also very wholesome and sweet, as it shows us that the couple was able to get their bearings and try to live a normal life after the chaotic 3 days in Seattle. Lastly, the final scene with Joel and Ellie got me quite emotional, as we see the two trying their best to rekindle what they once had, even though they both instinctively know that it's not possible. Ellie attempts to forgive Joel for what he did really shows that the emotional impact that this game can have on you, and sort of justifies everything Ellie did to try and avenge his death. These dozen or so scenes were the crowning jewels of the game for me, and really made me connect with it on a much deeper level.
I don't care about last night.
Well, I do.
I know you guys have probably heard this everywhere, but killing Joel so early into the game was a huge turnoff for me from the get-go. I know Joel was going to die at some point because that's the only way Ellie could have taken the lead role, but to do it so early on was a mistake. Instead of dedicating so many hours to Ellie and Abby walking around, why couldn't Joel have done that? Just exploring Jackson or going on a route with Tommy or even playing guitar with Ellie just a bit more would have done it so much more justice. Yes, we got to see him in flashbacks, but it just wasn't the same. Knowing Joel was gone so early really hurt me, and I feel like even an hour or two more would have been enough. Honestly, for the 3 days you play as Ellie in Seattle, I didn't really mind it. I thought every moment was either special, epic, or good for the plot development. When playing as Abby, I really didn't like the warehouse scene and the fight with the scars. I just found it boring and no fun. Leaving Abby and Mel together when they clearly don't want to talk to each other just makes the whole scene boring, and mowing down a bunch of scars won't help your case. Another part I really didn't like was Abby and Owen's, how do I put this nicely, physical transaction? The two go from arguing with each other, doing it on a table, and it's like, what? This makes absolutely no sense. You can't even play the it's two exes falling back in love together card, or the oh we still have feelings for your card, because the awkwardness of watching these two bone just does not justify it. This scene was hard to watch and left a sour taste in my mouth. Lastly, the whole Santa Barbara part at the end felt kind of like Naughty Dog just took us to a new location to kill some time. Santa Barbara was not appealing whatsoever, and the crazy Rattlers made the vibe around the part even worse. Like, yeah, I get that in some cities there are crazy groups that just take over, but the Rattlers are just lame and boring, and you just want to escape Santa Barbara as quickly as possible. Although there aren't many parts in this game where I genuinely wanted to skip over, these three take the cake as my least favorite moments of this game, and the weakest points of the story.
My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
When it comes to the ending of this game, I really don't know how to feel. You spend 20 plus hours of your life building up to this moment where Ellie has finally cornered Abby, and her whole 2-ish year of journey of revenge has built up to this. You're expecting an epic duel that you've seen before in Naughty Dog games like Uncharted 4, and you're so ready for a big memorable battle. But instead, all you get is Ellie stabbing Abby a couple times, Abby throwing down some haymakers, and when it's all said and done, no one dies. What the fuck? No, it can't end like this. Yes, the argument can be made that it's a lame fight because Ellie has a big hole in her stomach and it looks like Abby hasn't eaten since she was captured. But if that's the case, don't end the game there. Take us to another location months down the line where the two are actually healthy and can give us a memorable last fight. Like what? Ellie, you spent 2 years of your life trying to kill this girl to avenge the one guy that was always there for you, and then you don't? Like what? Ugh, it's frustrating. And then you return home to find out the last person on this planet that loves you has left you because you decided to continue this cat and game mouse for revenge. Then we have to ask ourselves, was it all worth it? And the simple answer is no, it wasn't. And to top it all off, you lose 2 fingers and now you can't even play the guitar anymore. So that's it, we end off the game with the lost Ellie walking off into the distance, basically achieving nothing and ultimately falling short of what she was set out to do, all because of her own choices. It just doesn't make any sense. I really don't know what Naughty Dog was trying to do with this ending, but it wasn't it. The game was so good up till that point, and then Naughty Dog tripped over their own 2 feet and messed it up. Joel's death wasn't even avenged. Wow. Overall, if we take everything into account, The Last of Us 2 is a great game that does deliver on what it sets out to do, but falls short when it matters most. I feel like the hate this game is getting is undeserving, as Naughty Dog outdid themselves this time, and this did truly produce a classic. While this game does best in its scenery and gameplay, it lacks in the key departments like entertaining character arcs, some boring sequences, and a truly disappointing ending. I love Naughty Dog, I love the games they make, I love the great characters they've given us over the years, but unfortunately this story, as good as it can be at times, falls short of a true masterpiece. And Naughty Dog will hopefully learn from their mistakes for future titles. My final verdict, all things considered, scenery, gameplay, characters, and story, I give this game a solid 9 out of 10. A bit more from Joel, maybe a little less Abby, and an actual good ending, and this game gets a 10 from me. Naughty Dog, you made an exceptional game, I'll give you that, but when a game like this has so much hype, so much buzz, and so many expectations, along with a 7-year wait time, you can't do some of the things that you did, and make some of the mistakes you made. You just can't. We'll see what the future holds for The Last of Us, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see. Also, one last time, RIP Joel.